Goals, objectives, and targets. One of the things about the goals and objectives and targets is that you will be identifying what that will be as you go through your application process. You may find things. A great example. One of the things that you're going to be looking at is, what equipment do you use? A lot of people right now are looking at the purchasing of new equipment. And some of that new equipment, and I'll give an example, like an electrostatic sprayer, may be tough to get a hold of. And so, you have a short-term, objective, how you're going to handle things short-term. Long-term would be to, obtain an electrostatic sprayer or multiple electrostatic sprayers and, put that in your goals and objectives. That's a simple thing. You're going to be doing audits and inspections, and through that you will identify them, different targets or things that you want to change. But at least put 3 of you, I would say, high-level major goals as you're going through the application process. Keep track of those goals. Who's responsible for following through on those goals? And do you have a timeline as to how you want to implement it? As a compliance person, for all my career, it's always interesting to me where you'll put goals and objectives, and sometimes it's the same goal and objective every year. It's like, no, you want something that's measurable, that's doable and achievable. And so, those SMART goals. Element 6, program controls and monitoring. Sometimes people have a difficult time with this of understanding. So let's try and simplify it a little bit. You want to have program controls in place for how, especially, again, we're focusing on those 3 parts of the program: cleaning, disinfection, and infection prevention measures. How are you going to make sure and monitor that those things are in place, that what you have set as your goals and objectives or program elements are really functioning as such? Remember, this is a performance-based program, and the people who are responsible for the program are yourself and your employees and your in leadership. How do you know that they're in place? This could be part of your audit and inspection program. Sometimes a great thing is managing by walking around. You see things. How do you ensure that that it's communicated that there's something not working? Making sure that those things are in place. How do you monitor for, let's say, usage of your disinfectant when you are, let's say, running low and you need to order something? What are those things in place? And just, again, that's another chapter in the book. Let's put that in a chapter in a book and know that those are the ways that you do the monitoring and program controls. Element 7 is actually something that there's a couple of them that are kind of near and dear to my heart, and I've actually done a lot of training on these aspects in risk assessment and risk mitigation strategies. That's always one of those things that I've actually been asked before did a presentation to a governmental agency one time, and they were asking, how do you do a risk assessment? And I said, well, it depends. I said, what type of risk assessment do you want me to do? We can do formal risk assessments. There's actually programs out there. Some of them are called things like Taproot, or I'm very familiar with one called Zurich Hazard Assessment, where you get together in a room and you go through maybe a manufacturing plant, and the specific risk assessment for how I was in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time, how you manufacture, a particular drug from the time raw product comes in to the time, raw product or a product goes out the door, and all the different risks associated with the entire process. So you can do that. You can do a task risk assessment. You could, to me, I like to explain it that you can build risk assessment into your day-to-day work. When you get up in the morning and you're going to, in normal times, and you're going to drive to work, you get in a car and you drive down, sometimes some of us on very, very busy roads. There's always a risk assessment associated with it. So think about the methodologies for ongoing risk assessment. Have you been able to implement that? in your work practices, when you do an inspection or an audit, to me, that's part of risk assessment. You're trying to identify gaps in your program. Do you have a way that, once they're identified, can you prioritize them? It's always interesting to me when you look at the probability versus severity, and you can actually go through programs where you can put them on a grid, and you can see, you have a line of, this is something that we have to address immediately, and these are risks that the probability is very rare that it's going to happen. And you want to get those things that are really high risk from a standpoint of probability versus severity, and mitigate those risks. What controls or what things do you need to put in place to actually bring those the probability of something bad happening down? And so there's a lot that we can do in this. And over time, GBAC and ISSA will put together some programs for folks to be able to go through that, and we'll communicate and provide some training on that. But think about how you can integrate risk assessment throughout your programs and how you get that feedback back to you. Standard operating procedures. I had one facility asked if I wanted their entire book of standard operating procedures, and I said, no, I really don't. I really just need to see those operating procedures, their SOPs, with regard to cleaning, disinfection, and infectious disease prevention programs. So your and things like your social distancing or physical distancing programs. What do you already have? Some facilities, some of you will have amazing programs and procedures already in place. Some of them are automated, and some of them I've even seen have apps that their workers can pull them up on their phone. Some have said, we're using this as an opportunity to really, coordinate and organize our SOPs, because they're written down on a book in the back room, and we really want to make this a more formal program. And that's where we want to head. We want to be able to do that so that people have more confidence in the facilities, and that they're repeatable, that it's not uncommon when you're going through a process like this, that the person who knows what the SOPs are, it's up here, and they've been here for 35 years. And so what we want to do is have it so that people understand what's required, and making sure that you have a list of those critical SOPs, and that you are keeping those maintained. And we'll get to documentation in a little bit, but it's really important to have those in place. Now, what we have also identified is that there's a lot of questions on SOPs, and so we are developing what we call facility templates. We have facility templates for convention centers, for hotels. We're working, for arenas and for sports arenas, pool houses, you name it. As we are identifying different spaces, if we don't have a template already, we work with the organizations to develop the templates. And so, as you go through the accreditation program, look to the resource page to see what templates are there. And if you see something that or you want to suggest a template, just reach out to us and let us know. We want to make sure that the resources are available to you.